Junior drivers have got it harder in F1 than we probably realise. Although most are funded throughout their careers, they have constant pressure to succeed right from the outset in every category they race in, and if they're not good enough, there's nearly always someone in the wings ready to replace them at any given moment. Red Bull are a prime example of this. Look at what they've done to the likes of Jean-Eric Vergne, Daniel Kvyat, and more recently Alex Albon, who's been replaced by Sergio Perez for the coming season. But what some fans don't realise is that the other teams on the grid can be just as brutal. It's just they're a lot more subtle when it comes to letting their drivers down. In this video, I'm going to see if Mercedes are one of those teams. I'll give a brief overview on what's happened with a couple of their past juniors, whilst I'll also give my opinion on the seats of the team looking forward into the future. The modern day Mercedes team haven't been in F1 for long compared to some of their competitors, and they don't really have a huge junior programme, and just one of those drivers isn't associated with the team at all, and that's Pascal Verline, who is currently in Formula E with Porsche. In my opinion, Pascal was a driver that should have had a much longer career in F1, and he unfortunately fell through the cracks of the Mercedes junior programme. He had talent from the outset and a moderately successful junior career, but it was when he stepped up to DTM in 2013 where aged just 18 people started to take notice of his potential. He had an unsuccessful debut season for Mucker Motorsport and scored only 3 points, but the following year he joined the HWA team, which coincidentally had Toto Wolff as a major stakeholder. Throughout his time in the series, he became the youngest driver to get pole and win a race, and in 2015 he was the youngest ever DTM champion, an incredible feat at just 20 years old. It was during this time he was also announced as a reserve driver for the Mercedes F1 team. He took part in pre-season testing for both Mercedes and Force India and gained valuable mileage for himself and the teams, whilst it also gave the opportunity for Toto to analyse his speed and consistency in an F1 car. He was obviously good enough in the eyes of the senior management team at Mercedes, as they used him as a bargaining chip with the Manor F1 team to get him in the car for the 2016 season, and in return Manor got access to the Mercedes wind tunnel and heavily discounted power units. Pascal had a great year when you take into consideration the car he was driving, and he scored the team's only points of the season in Austria by finishing 10th. His teammate Rio Haryanto was replaced mid-season by fellow Mercedes junior Esteban Ocon. Unfortunately, Manor didn't participate in another season as the team's parent company was put into administration, and Pascal was heavily linked to the Mercedes seat made vacant by champion Nico Rosberg, who retired. Unluckily for him, Toto Wolff chose Williams driver Valtteri Bottas to partner Lewis Hamilton, and Pascal was forced into a Sauber team that was underfunded, yet he comprehensively beat teammate Marcus Ericsson and scored 5 points, although most of us remember him being on his side in Monaco after Jenson Button took him out. Sauber then aligned closer to Ferrari and signed Charles Leclerc, leaving Pascal without a seat. Since then, he returned to DTM in 2018, left Mercedes completely, and joined Ferrari as a development driver whilst also driving in Formula E, and for the upcoming season he'll be racing for Porsche. Overall, I think Pascal was done dirty by Mercedes, especially when he could have been placed in a better seat for 2017. But the next guy I'm talking about was seen as the better driver and beat him to it. Of course, that other driver is Esteban Ocon, another one Mercedes have sort of mismanaged at times over the last few years. He had a fantastic junior career, winning both the F3 Euro Series in 2014, beating the likes of Max Verstappen, whilst he also won the GP3 title in 2015. He also tested for Force India during this time, and he impressed the senior figures in the F1 paddock. In 2016 he was named as Renault's reserve driver and took part in 4 free practice sessions, as well as participating in 10 DTM races, although he only managed to score 2 points. As I mentioned earlier, he partnered Pascal Verline in the second half of 2016, replacing Rio Haryanto, whose sponsors didn't meet their contractual obligations, and he was impressive right from the off, pretty much matching Verline's pace and even beating him in some races. Force India needed a driver as Nico Hülkenberg was off to Renault, and Ocon was a perfect fit as he was young, quick, and already knew the in and outs of the team. His 2 seasons at the team were very successful against a strong teammate in Sergio Perez, as he finished 8th and 12th in the championship, although he did have a few run-ins with him that cost the team vital points. But when Force India were put into administration and eventually bought out by Lawrence Stroll, it was inevitable that Ocon would leave the team. Mercedes couldn't find a seat for him for 2019 as Renault backed out of their deal to sign him after Daniel Ricciardo joined instead, so Mercedes had to give Ocon a reserve driver role, meaning he spent the whole year next to Toto Wolff in the garage watching the action from the sidelines, as well as spending thousands of hours in the simulator. There were rumours suggesting he could replace Bottas if he had a bad season, but we all know how that went seeing as he's still at the team. Toto promised Ocon would get a seat for 2020, and that was fulfilled when he replaced Nico Hülkenberg at Renault. There's a bit of confusion surrounding his contract though. Ex-Renault team principal Cyril Abiteboul stated Ocon will be under control by the Enstone team for 2 years, although he's still managed by Mercedes. This means he could technically be promoted in 2022, but I think we all know who's favourite for that call-up, and that guy is George Russell. A stellar junior career, some would say outperforming that Williams, although we can only judge him against the Robert Kubica who was never going to be at his peak, and Nicholas Latifi, who albeit reliable and a safe pair of hands, he hasn't got the same raw pace as Russell, although his race pace is quite competitive. However, the Sakir Grand Prix showed what George could do. Once he substituted the COVID-stricken Lewis Hamilton, he had to prove himself against Bottas whilst accustoming to a new car with a seat he didn't fit into and shoes that were too small for him, yet he performed brilliantly. He was less than half a tenth off Valtteri in qualifying and beat him in the race. That performance solidified him as a Mercedes driver of the future, and if he continues operating at that level in the Williams this year, he'll be in that seat on a permanent basis in 2022. He's not perfect though, and he does need to iron out a few mistakes before that time comes. Mercedes will expect him to be a title challenger from the off, and we've seen at times that he pushes himself too hard and he's thrown away possible point scoring opportunities, the most notable of which came at Imola last season crashing behind the safety car. But he owns his mistakes and doesn't shy away from them by showing accountability, and it's this maturity that makes me believe he can lead a top team. Plus I think the race in Sakir has given him so much confidence I don't think he'll crack under pressure again. So are Mercedes wasting their junior talent? In my opinion, no. Although I think they treated Verline pretty badly once he got into F1, they learnt from it, and they gave both Ocon and Russell time to develop. Ocon's situation was especially tough, yet Mercedes managed him the best they could. My only worry is where he could end up after his Alpine contract expires. These are the only 2 juniors Mercedes will have for a few seasons, so they better continue to manage them properly. Although it's recently been confirmed that Frederick Vesti has now joined their junior programme, so it seems they realised they had a lack of options going forward, especially as they are now aligning closer with Williams so a few more seats might open up for their drivers in the future. So those are some of my thoughts on the Mercedes junior programme. Make sure to let me know what you guys think on how they've treated their younger talent. Is there anybody else in the feeder categories that they should keep an eye on? This is a different video compared to my usual stuff, and I might do something else for another team on the grid. So if you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments below what team I should focus on next. Anyway, you know the drill by now. If you enjoy these videos then like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
It's gonna be a long night, baby, but it's alright.